Don't pour refuse into the gutters. Floods kill and render our neighbors homeless. Let's be our brother's keeper. Report offenders to the appropriate authorities. This message is from 92.3 Nigeria Info.
You spend a lot of your hard-earned money to purchase the things in your house and at your business centers. And thus, you must do what you can to protect and maintain them. Accidents can and do happen, so we at 92.3 Nigeria Info would like to encourage you to take the following steps to prevent a fire outbreak. First, install a fire alarm. Ask your electrician about fire alarms, as some can be affordable. Educate children around you. Take time to explain the dangers of fire and teach them the safety protocols and numbers to call in case of emergencies. Be wary of electrical appliances. They may make our lives easier, but they can be dangerous when they become faulty. Ensure a professional repairs or helps with the installation of home appliances. Do not make illegal power connections. Exercise caution when cooking. As you prepare your food, please stay close by. Resist the urge to take a nap or do other things whilst cooking. Also, ensure flammable substances are not close to your burner. Do not store fuel or diesel at home. Many fires have started because of petroleum products being stored in the homes of many Nigerians. Get a fire extinguisher. A fire extinguisher will go a long way to either reduce the spread or stop a fire if caught early. Keep fire-causing tools and items safe in storage. And finally, regular training, reminders, and updates to both family and staff members will keep individuals alert to safety protocols. Know the emergency numbers to call.
Structure,
lease,
construction,
edifice,
infrastructure,
masterpiece,
residential, industrial, commercial.
Define, design, refine. Architects World. Delving into the field of design. Opening the mind to possibilities. Highlighting opportunities for everyday living. Architects World. Tuesdays 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. It's Architects World on your number one talk news and sports radio station here in Port Harcourt, Nigeria Info FM. Good afternoon. 14 minutes gone past 2. We've come to the 7th day in the month of September, and I dare say it's a great time to be alive. I just felt like saying that. No reason in particular. Anyway, as always, in Architects World, I don't do this alone. I'm always joined by the one and only, the able architect, Bozimo. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. I think you said it because the sun is shining brightly today.
Ah, yes. You know that's how we roll on the sunny side, by the way. We bring the sun to life.
To each person's ears.
Oh, yes. Welcome to the show. Well, today we're going to be talking about the gated community checklists.
Yes.
I find this quite interesting because especially here, I don't know how it is in other states, but for the states I have, visited, like Delta, Abuja, Lagos, in comparison with Port Harcourt, in particular Port Harcourt town, you'd find that we have more gated communities here than those states that I mentioned, So it's a thing for us here, I find.
I noticed it myself. In fact, you do have a number of people advertising on various platforms the potential to buy into gated communities. And there are, of course, a number of advantages and a few, maybe fewer disadvantages, if you will.
Right.
But, the theme of today's show will be about what a potential subscriber should be trying to ascertain or find out from the promoters or developers of the gated community, among other things. Just because we've always said it, a residence is likely to be the single most expensive item any person is going to pay for in their lifetime.
Wow.
So you want to try to do all you can to ensure that your money will give you lasting value. So I mean, what is a gated community? Of course, land is available and sold, per plot or whatever in various parts of the country and indeed the world. Now, some people are developers, and developers would be people who say, okay, they want to aggregate the demand for speculative or some potential kind of housing among people. Sometimes it's speculative. They make the projects and then they market them.
Right.
In some other cases, they may approach groups of people in things like cooperatives and say, look, we are ready and prepared to put a project together for the members of your cooperative, and so they are going to share the premises mostly with the people of that cadre, and at the end of the day there could be different types and categories of housing, and the goal always is to get the buy-in, and then they can pretty much start and deliver both the residences and the associated infrastructure, so that the people living there can at least have the benefits that we'll talk about of a typical gated community. So gated communities are they're pretty nice when well conceived, well executed, and well delivered. You have, especially in the current climes, you may have an enhanced sense of security, and that is increasingly important, not just here but around the world. But around here, especially with sometimes the news not being as palatable as we wish it were, you can say in a gated community you might have more of a sense of who resides in your immediate neighborhood. You have security as one of the advantages. You have a sense of community, because after a while you typically will get maybe a homeowners association. People will begin to know each other just from walking, passing each other, saying hello. You begin to have a sense of who lives in your immediate vicinity, and so you have the security, you have the community, and then very often, to make gated communities attractive, the promoters try to add amenities. So it's not just about having homes popping out of the ground like pockmarks on somebody's face. It's about homes properly sited, properly spaced, when depending on the design, properly accessed with small driveways, sidewalks, maybe some children's play areas. Then shared things like, instead of everybody perhaps having a borehole, you could have a centralized water purification system. Instead of everybody running their own individual generator, you could have centralized power, and that elevates the quality perhaps of living within the area, when everybody at least has a single source of some of these amenities, rather than everybody having to be responsible for their, because we're still, unfortunately for now, we're still an energy poor society, so power is an issue, water as well is an issue. If you have a gated community well and properly managed, then those amenities are provided and everybody can share the cost. Of course, the kinds of things you also know may happen in a gated community is that, frankly, when a gated community is well developed and all that, you might almost lose a sense of reality outside those gates.
True.
When you create a nice haven for yourself, sometimes when you're inside there enjoying the amenities, the serenity and all that, you might find that when you come out, the real world is almost a shock to you.
True.
So that's one thing. And it has been said in terms of urban planning and societal development that gated communities enhance the divisions between the haves and have-nots, and unfortunately can lead to some envy and targeting and all that. So there is that little downside. I mean, it's real. You don't want to be targeted or trailed to your home. Then inside the gated community, of course, one thing you typically have that you can ensure is access control. Only authorized people normally should be allowed in. It means the residents and their families, and then maybe authorized tradespeople. Maybe either you have within the facility a facility management team that can take care of minor odds and ends that happen, because in every residence over time a few things can need maintenance or fail. So sometimes some communities have a facility management arm that is dedicated to taking care of odds and ends, or they have people invited in ad hoc. But once the management of the community, of the community is well set up, then such people must be allowed in. They can't just come in on their own. Even if they did work for you last week, they can't come again this week without a specific authorization. So these are some of the things that help make a gated community feel maybe safer than, when you just buy your piece of land on the street and build. Now, the trade-off, of course, is that the promoters of such a gated community are in it for business. So you might find there could be marginally higher costs, maybe to marginally or more. I mean, depends on what's being provided. And when over time those costs of maintenance and all that, now sometimes they're really beautiful, because with the planning being very well done, there will be proper landscaping, hard and soft. There'll be play areas, rest areas, the different things that can make the gated community complete. You should have some security posts, at the access control area. You can have shared sewage treatment. There are a number of things that can make a gated community like an island in the middle of the chaos that can be some parts of the country. But it's always, there was a joke somebody said when many years ago, one of the presidents of Nigeria offered to make a gated community for Nigerians who would return. It was supposed to be a diaspora gated community somewhere in Lagos. And somebody asked a good question. Nice idea you have for a gated community, but are you going to make gated roads that lead from that your gated community to the market? Are you going to put a gated market? So as much as you do have the nice features and factors of a gated community, you should ultimately target ways to make the entire society better, safer, calmer, so that the gated community is now a choice. But even if you don't live in one, you should still have safe benefits exactly of living in that society. That's the truth.
Now, when it comes to the idea of gated communities, I actually think that, well, I may be wrong, but I hold the opinion that many people would love to live in such, a community because of a controlled environment like you described, I mean, also like you described, shared power, for instance, water, connected roads, and just that's atmosphere of a safe haven for your children, protection to some regard. But on the other hand, it also sometimes comes off as really pricey. So when people have that desire, it's also met with the limitation of the high cost. So is it possible to, meet in the middle, these differing ideas,
or let's say different imperatives?
Exactly.
You do want those benefits, and as I say, ideally there should be the measure of that available to you anywhere you live. But what people sometimes think about is the relative cost. And I mean, not to go too hard, if you're in a place that's relatively safe or safer, then perhaps you're avoiding the trauma, which is almost impossible to compute, of attacks, robberies, worse, kidnappings, and the rest. So some people will weigh the potential. Yes, it could be, in fact, it often is more pricey than just buying on the street and building. Truth. But you are getting elevated and coherent standards. So within that space, ideally, you will have a certain standard minimum of the structures, the look, the feel, the design. Then you can have some benefits of collective bargaining. There are situations where people are able to assure maybe a power provider that, look, we're 30 in this place, so you know that every month we will be paying our bills. Can you give us a marginal discount on power or on water supply or on something? So when you're alone, in most cases you don't have that strength of collective bargaining, but when you're a group, you may be able to utilize it to enhance the individual lives of everybody there. And so there's that balance. Ultimately, people have to compute. They have to look at what's their pocket size. But I think the benefits overall may outweigh the disadvantages, especially in our environment. There are other parts of the world where, whether you live in a gated community, in fact, living in a gated community there in some other parts of the world exposes you to much higher costs, because you are going to be taxed more on everything, because the society says, okay, you guys want to create your little enclave, fine, you're going to pay for that, for that extra, and so you end up spending that much more. But correspondingly, I'm sure in those cases you get all the benefits that could accrue from that.
All right, so we'd like that you join the conversation right now. We're talking about the gated community checklist. Whatever questions or thoughts you have, you can obviously share. The numbers to call are 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007, or the female caller line 0817-923-0009. On WhatsApp, it's 0809-030-6416. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so you can join us on there as you drop your comments at Nigeria Info 92.3 BH. Take a very quick break, and when we return, we'll get to the phone lines.
Connect with your customers. Advertise on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Visit our downtown office at Shop 9, Mediatrix of All Gracies Plaza, opposite FIRS, Stadium Road, Port Harcourt, and book your commercials. Call 0817-001-8162. That is 0817-001-8162. And let us connect you to your customers. Connect with your customers. Advertise on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Visit our downtown office at Shop 9, Mediatrix of All Gracies Plaza, opposite FIRS, Stadium Road, Port Harcourt, and book your commercials. Call 0817-001-8162. That is 0817-001-8162, and let us connect you to your customers. Connect with your
masterpiece, residential, industrial, commercial.
Define, design, refine. Architects World. Delving into the field of design. Opening the mind to possibilities, highlighting opportunities for everyday living. Architects World. Tuesdays 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Architects World. This is your number one talk, news and sports radio station here in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, Info FM. It's 2:30 p.m. That means we've got about 30 minutes or less to wrap the conversation up. We'd like that you join the conversation now. My guest has been architect Bozimo, and we're talking about the gated community checklist. We'd like that you join the conversation with your questions or thoughts. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007 or 0817-923-0009. The WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416. Now, we've talked about some of the benefits, some of the, in your words, little disadvantages, right, that gated communities hold, especially in this part of the world, right, in Nigeria, narrowing down, of course, to River State. Now, let's talk about questions that people should ask as a family, as a man, a woman, or whoever who's looking to move into a gated community, that we must ask?
Okay, now there could be, it's mostly design, drawings, and layouts.
Yeah.
And the other stage, when the buildings actually exist and you are actually given the opportunity to walk inside and perceive all that's intended. Starting from that earlier stage, you want to have, because this is not ever going to be a small amount of money, so you're going to have naturally a bit of anxiety. You just want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. You want to have a sense of the relationship between the developer and the landowner, or whether they have owned the land. 2, you want to have a clear sense of what the housing types are. You want to have a sense of what kinds of finishes, what kind of stages of development.
Right.
You also want, you see, we're just suffering from more and more weather-related issues right now.
True.
And in certain parts of the country, floods are going to become much more common. So you want to find out. Now, some of these questions I'm asking may not be questions that if somebody gave you an answer, you could actually ascertain whether the answer is correct. The cooperative or the individuals may be well served by retaining consultants on their behalf. It may be that 2 to 20 subscribers could come together and retain a consultant or more to help them examine what is being proposed. It's not a case of mistrusting the developer or anything like that, but the business imperatives of the developer may be to, let's put it this way, minimize how much money spent. It doesn't mean do substandard work, but it means, look, no frills. And for a person about to buy in, you want to see, okay, agreed, we're not, when we sign on the dotted line, we're not going to ask you to put in bells and whistles, but let's make sure that what is being offered meets the minimum standards. What you don't want in a project is after it's done, you are living in there with failures. And it's very easy to think of a building collapse. That's the most visible sign of failure. But a building collapse is not the only kind of failure. When you're in a house, for instance, or in a community, things aren't working on a regular basis. You're inside the house, that will assess the project in terms of the house designs and how they relate to the rest of the community. You want to see a site plan and ask them to go over it. That community should have amenities. You should have, where possible, at least security, where possible, some little shopping facilities around there. It depends on how large or how small it is, because not every estate, or as we call it, is going to be huge, but there should be a few. What kind of security system is there? How is it all going to be paid for? This land, where is it? Is it properly drained? If it's not properly drained, how are we going to ensure that by the time our homes are built there, we don't suffer the effects of ever increasing rainfall? There are many techniques. Structural engineers, sometimes, of course, they do the whole thing with gutters, but I've seen an estate where, in an amazing way, they decided to use the roads themselves as the channels through which water would go. So they were not digging a lot of gutters, but they were just making sure that the whole estate was sloped in a way that whenever rain falls, the whole water goes away. That was, I thought that was brilliant. Those are the kind of things you want to ensure, because you don't want a situation where when you're living there, you can't get out of your house because it's raining. And it's really about doing the proper what's that thing called? Due diligence. One of the beautiful things we found in this country is that electrical wiring made in Nigeria is, simply put, the best wiring to use for projects here. Ironically, that's one thing that no self-respecting electrical engineer will ever recommend you import. We can import all sorts of other things, but electrical wiring is done here for the reason that the quality in Nigeria is appropriate. Sometimes people go and import things that are substandard, and so when you put on lights, you have lights flickering or failing or fuses burning. You don't want that. For the mechanical fixtures too, some fixtures are designed for use maybe in imperial countries like the US. If you import those to Nigeria, they might not work appropriately as you want. You might not have the kind of powerful shower that you want. You need your mechanical engineer to help you assess what is being proposed. Or in some other cases, in some designs of some of the gated communities, they give you an opportunity to bring your own design and put on your plot. So in that case, you would need your architect and your whole team to help you prepare that design according to the standards that the estate wants and submit it on your behalf and defend anything that's defensible. So you also want to know what are the rules of that community, because you just can't come and put just anything typically, because they want a measure of visual control, not necessarily uniformity, but some control. So these are the kind of questions you should be asking. What are the covenants if I buy into this? What are the opportunities I'll meet? What are the limitations I'll encounter? How will we stay dry? How will we stay safe? How will we have recreation? Are there going to be, gyms and all that within? Those are questions you ask because you're investing in your own future. And as part of the steps, you could very wisely team up with a few other people and get some built environment professionals to help you assess what's coming. And not just that, in some cases, you could have them pay occasional visits to your individual project, and you can have that conversation with the developer. A developer who has no what's the word, nothing is trying to hide, should not find that offensive, because as fellow professionals, their professional inside should be able to exchange professional discussions with your set of professionals, and everybody should be on the same page.
Now, we do have a comment on WhatsApp. It's from VN in Port Harcourt. It says, gated communities tend to be secure, but this comes at a price. Occupants pay more for services and are restricted on building designs and aesthetics. Now, that's another challenge, when you obviously want to live within that community, but you have to abide and follow the aesthetic plan
that's
of the community.
Those are like I said, those are the slight downsides. Now, some gated communities have their standard designs that you must pick.
You must
pick.
Yeah.
I mean, they can build it for you, or they could give you the documents and you build it for yourself. I think that's a rare situation. Normally, they want to build because they have assembled the resources to make it happen, and you are buying into the entire process. It's not just buying the blocks, it's about buying into the process. But standardized, residential offerings, there could be areas where they do what they call site and services, where they provide the road network and sidewalks and everything, street lights, leading up to the plots. Then people purchase those plots and they can build their own designs. But typically, those designs still have to be passed through a committee within the developers, so that they at least have to have a certain, I won't say conformity, but they should not be so otherworldly that it's clear that something went wrong. This person doesn't get the drift of this our community. So there are many models, but the key thing you're trying to always ensure is that you're not surprised when all is said in your home. You want to be able to live there, you want to live there safely. You want especially your children to have a sense of safety while they're growing up. And you find that in gated communities, people, because there's more of this brotherly engagement, they will drive safer within. Of course, you can put the necessary speed breakers and all that to ensure that people don't get carried away by driving recklessly within. A gated community has advantages, but you, as a person, make sure you ask all the questions and do the due diligence, and where possible, arm yourself with the necessary professional knowledge to ask the pertinent questions on your behalf and to be able to interpret the answers. You see, it's one thing to ask a question and be given an answer. How do you assess that answer? The best people to assess it would be professionals who are in your camp, in your corner. Again, it's not a matter of conflict, it's a matter of confidence. You're building confidence, not trying to create conflict in any form or shape.
Now, quick question. Gated communities are obviously different from gated streets, right?
Yes.
So what, because again, one of the very common things around here are also gated streets.
Right.
Yeah, that's also a thing. What then is the, how would you differentiate the idea of a gated community aside a gated street?
You see, I think the gated streets have emerged as a direct response to the security needs here in Lagos, in many parts of the country. So what's happening is that people are just saying, look, we the people in this arena are agreeing and deciding that from X hour of night, we have erected a gate and we shall be closing it to control who can come into this street. You find that the houses in some of those that lie along those gated streets are not necessarily part of a larger community. They're typically individual homes. But those people, in response to their security needs, have agreed. Typically, they have put money together to fund the erection of a gate post, and perhaps even fund the payment of the people who are there to operate that gate for them at certain hours of day or night. And that is just a direct response. A gated community, on the other hand, is an overall concept where somebody or a group of people, either the people who want the homes or a developer or both, are saying, we want to create a place where people of like minds have the opportunity to reside with direct access to certain amenities, improved sense of security, and community can be built. So yes, within that gated community there are streets, but you don't find gates on each of the streets. You just have maybe more of a sense of the perimeter being guarded, with whether electrical fencing or NATO wire or whatever, and then you have controlled access at one or more points. And it is what goes on within that space. The character of that space is what makes it a community, hopefully. Even in certain communities, they have different sub areas, sub designs, they have different areas, but at least overall, there's that sense that we all have a stake in making this place work as well as we can. That gives you more of that sense of gated community. There are some cases on the gated streets where one person on the street, I'm not paying the levy.
Yeah.
There's always that person on that street. The person doesn't pay, but they, benefit from the thing. And, it's not as if you can fight them. Typically, if he's a landlord, he lives there, you're not going to get up and go. But with the gated community, I think the mentality of those entering gated communities is slightly different. We're entering something together. Another thing I should say, always try and find out how are the amenities going to be paid for, i.e. metering. Metering is very, very important. You always, nobody is afraid of paying for what they consume, but everybody takes umbrage to the idea of paying or not being sure that what they are paying for is what they actually consume. So please always check on the metering of your electricity, your water, whatever the service is. How are we going to get rid of refuse? Is there a system? Is there a schedule? These are things, because you don't want what we see on the streets of Port Harcourt to be happening inside your estate with trash just lumped somewhere. It's unacceptable in the city of Port Harcourt, and it's of course worse within a community.
Now, do gated communities increase property value?
That is something that has been associated with gated communities, because there's this sense of stability and enhanced value. And with real estate, there is that location. When you create literally magic within a location, first of all, the property values are likely to stay more stable. And over time, I would argue that the property value will appreciate at a better rate than even properties in the vicinity that are not so grouped in the community. That's a gated community. So we have that.
Is it possible to convert a neighborhood to a gated community?
I guess you'd have to engage the local government. Because suddenly maybe houses that are just side by side, you now want to maybe put a perimeter fence around them. Who are you keeping in? Who are you cutting off? There could be one person that says, no, this is the access that I always want to use to get to my house. You are not permitted to cut off a public street and prevent me. So it would be, I think, more difficult. And that's why the deliberate kind of gated community where it was planned like this from the start would be the better kind of community to try and buy into. But yes, neighbors can be more neighborly. Neighbors can be more cooperative. Neighbors can make enhancements that keep themselves and their families safe. But you wouldn't necessarily call that a gated community. You can call it a gated street with, enhanced circumstances.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes or less to wrap the conversation up. We'd like that you join in with your questions. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007 or the female caller line 0817-923-0009. The WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416. We're also on Facebook. We're streaming live on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. Now, when it comes to, let's bring it down to our community, our state, River State, Port Harcourt Town, for instance. For people who obviously invest in gated communities, what role do you think perhaps the government can play in ensuring, not just for aesthetic purposes, of course security purposes as well, but to also ensure that that stability in terms of the financial aspect, that it comes at a stable rate for people to enjoy? My question really is, is there any role the government can actually play in that regard?
Well, government, of course, is the sole holder of all land. But once a private individual or developer has purchased the land, they, of course, have to comply with all the design and planning and construction standards. That's where government comes in. But, I would say there's little government can do once that, yes, they have to make sure that the people comply.
All right. Let's speak to JD from LMA. Good afternoon, JD.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to find out, just like you said in the intro, the community is a team now, and people are buying into it for security and accessibility and other benefits. But sometimes I wonder if owner of a particular house in the gated community is on, will the community allow him to rest in peace in his apartment?
I'm sorry, you said if an owner
allowing the house to be buried, the rest ceremony in his apartment. I keep thinking about it, but I doubt if that will be allowed, because I know most estates are managed by the developers. You own your own house, but largely other facilities and the management of the estate is in the hands of the developers. So would they allow a dead person to be buried in his house, or a ceremony to be done in the community? Thank you.
Somehow,
JD, thank you very much.
Somehow I doubt it very much. I'm sure in the fine print of the covenants that may be one of the things that are prohibited, because typically we know that cemeteries are the ideal or official place for people who have passed on to be laid to rest. I don't know why a person, I know it's common in a number of our cultures, but I think in many of the covenants of most of these developments, I think they'll prohibit that, and that might stand to reason.
All right, 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. You can also call 0817-923-0007 or the female caller line 0817-923-0009. We're winding down to the end of the show already. You can send your comments to 0809-030-6416. Now, Bozimo, would you say you encourage that gated community life as opposed to, building or investing in a facility outside of that experience?
Well, it really, really depends typically on not just on the word affordability. It doesn't mean you may have all the money at the initial point. If the developer makes a proposal in a way that you can afford it, it doesn't mean it's cheap, but it means that you can break it down in a manageable way. then I think there are lots of things to be enjoyed. I mean, the maintenance, that overall maintenance, the ambience, the security, the sense of community, these are all things that can enhance your living. The place where your children, get up and play, and you have that sense of security around them. That can add years to your life, just being less worried about your family immediately. So there are enhancements, but like I always say, the ultimate goal should be to have that sense of security both within or outside a potential gated community. And yes, the gated community may enhance those things, but the minimum standard should include the best life for anybody and everybody.
Would you say gated communities always come at that large scale? Is it possible to invest in a gated community that is, of course, have the basic amenities like power, regulated power, water, connecting roads, and that's it? Can it come at that small scale level?
I think, you could make gated communities that have anything 12, 20 homes. They don't always have to be as huge, but understand that very often some of the economies of scale come in when you have the larger development, because if you will rent a bulldozer and you are able to move 100,000 cubic meters of earth, you have maximized that. But if you're only moving 30 cubic meters of earth, you are still paying to rent it. And what that might mean is that the net cost may be more. But some people also like the idea of a relatively compact gated community, and that too has its beauty. It's not always going to be 40 or 400 homes. It could be 12, it could be 16, it could be just something very compact.
Which would you say holds higher value? Would you say the comments that came in earlier, the regulated, building designs, or I don't know if there is any gated community that allows for whatever kind of design you would like to, spring up?
I think typically maybe they'll give you a palette of 1 or 2, 3 or 4 types of designs that you can choose from. Exactly.
Okay, and so there is still some kind of order.
Some order, but what they might do is give you a palette of colors and materials that you could use to adorn the outside. So you can still have some variety, but overall you'll find that the architectonics, the massing and so on, and the arrangement of the buildings will have some harmony. You don't necessarily just want to go in and see chaos on the left and chaos on the right. That alone is not going to be adding to the value of your gated community. Truly, there are many models. The key thing is that a person who is about to invest in it wants to ensure that they're not taken by surprise at any point. You want to inspect the design documents. You want your lawyer to go through the deeds and all those things to make sure that you are protected. It's not play. It's never a plaything. The kind of money that's about to be spent. And you want to ensure that when you go into it, your eyes are well opened. In construction, I just want to say this: it's so exciting for people like me overcoming those challenges. But you want to make sure that there's a structure and a process in place to overcome those challenges. And the people who have the best means technically at their disposal are professional built environment professionals. And what you want is that you have the developer got more power to them. They are putting a lot at risk to prepare these buildings for you. You want to have your team of people also looking in on your behalf to ensure that what they say they want to do, the time and schedule and quality and materials are all that's supposed to be there. And sometimes somebody could have an idea about using a particular material, and somebody with a fresh set of eyes can say, hey, we can use the material but in this way, and it could enhance everybody's values. So those are the kind of things you can get if you have professionals on your side working for you.
Sadly, our time is up. We have to wrap the conversation up right now. But what would you say as we close the conversation?
I would just say it's not a bad thing to get yourself in a gated community if you can. It's neither is it a bad thing to build your individual project. It's both of them. You're solving your need. Residential housing. But when you're going to do that, don't necessarily rely on anything said verbally. Request for documents so that you have a record of what was said, what was promised, and where there could be areas where you might not be as familiar, because not everybody knows everything. Engage the services of built industry professionals to help you interpret some of what you are planning to do in plain English, so that at the end of the day, you are not surprised. That's the key thing. You want to go into it with all the assurance you can have and a sense of security.
All right, let's have your social handles.
Okay, I can be reached at the normal social media things at AB Bozimo.
AB Bozimo.
Yes, at AB Bozimo.
Thank you so much for your time, Architect. It's always a pleasure having this conversation with you.
It's always a pleasure and a privilege. You have a wonderful day.
You too. On this note, together wrap the conversation up on the sunny side. Thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow we'll do it again, 12 noon, right after the major news at the sunny side kicks in. I am Gabriella. Remember today at 3 o'clock. That happens in less than 3 minutes. And Dyer takes you on hard facts.